It's getting high time for teams to turn their attention to the NFL draft.
The Jets need a lot. Quarterback would probably be the one that comes front to mind. Maybe they get it later in the round, but Lige, you're going a different direction here.
Yeah, I'm going with the offensive line.
So today, how about we take a look around the NFL landscape and dive into every team's biggest need heading into this year's draft. Arizona Cardinals, DT. Arizona really struggled to create pressure on the opposing offenses in 2024, and the defensive line was a huge reason as to why. They're going to have to face the need head-on at this point, as there's a real chance that they lose multiple starters in free agency. Atlanta Falcons, edge. The Falcons' defensive front has been extraordinarily underwhelming in recent years. Even worse, their best edge rushers on paper are hitting free agency. This draft class offers a few intriguing names, and if the Falcons are serious about taking the next step defensively, they'd better find a dude who can get after that quarterback. Baltimore Ravens, OL. Ronnie Stanley has not been the same since his ankle injury. The depth is looking kinda thin. Buffalo Bills, DL. Look for Buffalo to add some depth to their defensive line. A versatile player like Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss would really add some support to the Bills' defense. The fact of the matter is that if this team is serious about making another deep playoff run, they need to make sure that their defense isn't getting bullied at the line of scrimmage. Carolina Panthers, edge. Carolina already has a stud in Derek Brown returning from injury this year, but he needs help. The Panthers need to find a real game-changing pass rusher who can disrupt plays before they happen. A young, explosive edge rusher, preferably on day one of the draft, as they need him to be ready to contribute right away. Chicago Bears, DE. While new head coach Ben Johnson may be an offensive-minded head coach, don't be shocked if he and Dennis Allen, his new defensive coordinator, look to the draft to rebuild the Chicago defense around a strong pass rush, especially with a few incumbents set to hit free agency. Cincinnati Bengals, DT. Sheldon Rankins is gone. Jay Tufele set to hit free agency. And suddenly, the defensive tackle room looks mighty unthreatening. Because if the Bengals can't stop the run or collapse the pocket, their Super Bowl aspirations will remain illusory. Cleveland Browns, QB. Our deepest sympathies go out to Browns fans because, at this point, Cleveland's quarterback situation is as bleak as it gets. Yikes. They gotta find a viable quarterback option in the draft. Dallas Cowboys, RB. The Cowboys found out the hard way last year that you can't just slap a committee label on a bunch of mid-tier running backs and expect the offense to keep on rolling. Dallas desperately needs a back who can be a true three-down threat. Someone who can keep defenses honest and take some of the pressure off of Dak Prescott. Denver Broncos, WR. Marvin Mims Jr. and Troy Franklin had some moments, but they aren't number one guys. And if Denver wants Knicks to take the next step quickly, they need a legitimate playmaker who can be a true complement to Sutton. This is a deep draft for wide receivers, and Denver has to take advantage of that. Detroit Lions, CB. Detroit's defense was already a weak spot down the stretch, and they can't afford to go into 2025 without a serious upgrade at corner. They need to hit on a young, athletic playmaker in the draft. Green Bay Packers, CB. Green Bay has a solid core, but the cornerback situation is getting kinda dicey, and there have been whispers that Jair Alexander might not be a lock to return either. So look for Green Bay to try and add some youth to their defensive backfield like the champion Eagles did ahead of last year. Houston Texans, WR. The Texans need to add a high upside playmaker in the draft who can grow alongside Stroud and give this offense another dimension. Stephon Diggs is set to be a free agent, and Tank Dell is unlikely to be ready for 2025 after his brutal injury. That leaves Nico Collins as the only proven wide receiver on that roster. Indianapolis Colts, safety. Julian Blackmon is set to hit free agency, and the Colts have struggled to find consistency in the defensive backfield. They must invest in a versatile, hard-hitting safety, someone like Malachi Starks out of Georgia, who can be a difference maker on the back end. Jacksonville Jaguars, CB. The Jaguars need major reinforcements at cornerback. The depth is thin. The talent level isn't where it needs to be. They let safety Andre Sisco, who's covered up a lot of the limitations at corner, walk. Things could get worse very quick. Kansas City Chiefs, LT. Left tackle was the biggest issue all season long. KC needs to look to the draft to find an NFL-ready stud that they can have under contract for the next few years on the relative cheap. Las Vegas Raiders, RB. If they pass on a QB early, don't be shocked if they take a swing on a guy like Ashton Genty to solidify the ground game, because the Raiders have plenty of needs. But running back has quietly become one of the biggest in the post-Josh Jacobs era. Los Angeles Chargers, WR. With a deep wide receiver class, expect LA to target a high upside guy who can immediately step into a big role. They need to find a real weapon to pair with Lad McConkey if this team wants to set up Justin Herbert for success and become legit contenders in the AFC West. Los Angeles Rams, LT. Sean McVay's system requires an athletic, technically sound tackle who can hold up in pass protection and pave the way for their run game. And what better place to look for that kind of talent than the draft? Miami Dolphins, OL. Miami's offense is electric when Tua Tagovailoa has time to throw. But when he doesn't, well, everything just kind of falls apart. The Dolphins cannot afford to run it back with a shaky unit again in 2025. This draft needs to be all about rebuilding the front five and ensuring Tua stays upright for a full season. Minnesota Vikings, CB. Top cornerbacks are set to hit free agency. That is a major issue for a team that really struggled to slow down opposing passing attacks last year. This team needs to add depth and speed to the defensive secondary in a hurry. New England Patriots, WR. New England's receiving core has been a revolving door of interesting, but ultimately underwhelming options for years now. There is nobody on this roster who scares opposing defenses. Jalen Polk has potential, but counting on him to develop into a top target in 2025 is just wishful thinking, especially with all the promise that Drake May showed during his first year under center. New Orleans Saints, edge. In the NFL, a defense without a pass rush is just waiting to get exposed. They need someone new to anchor this unit, someone who can take the torch from Cam Jordan and keep offensive coordinators up at night. Because if they don't, they'll be left watching quarterbacks pick them apart, kind of like what we saw far too often in 2024. New York Giants, QB. The Giants bottomed out in 2024, finishing dead last in total offense and posting one of the worst passing attacks in the league. This roster isn't completely devoid of talent, but it is missing the most important thing a franchise can have: a quarterback who can actually win games. New York needs to take a swing on a new franchise QB in the draft and get this rebuild started the right way. New York Jets, OT. They're still going to need to add depth. They cannot afford another year of musical chairs on the offensive line. And as much as the media likes to point fingers at Aaron Rodgers last year, with that offensive line, the situation seemed unwinnable. Regardless of who ends up under center in New York in 2025, they need to find a solution up front. Philadelphia Eagles, LB. Philly is still a contender. The roster is still loaded. But if they want to get back to the Super Bowl, they need to reload a linebacker, adding high upside speedsters to the middle of that defense. Pittsburgh Steelers, OT. The Steelers need help at offensive tackle. If Pittsburgh wants to give Russell Wilson or whoever the heck ends up ascending to QB1 in the Steel City a real chance in 2025, then they need to invest in protection. San Francisco 49ers, CB. This secondary has been held together by duct tape and elite front seven play for far too long. The 49ers need a legit number one corner who can hold his own against elite receivers, especially in a conference loaded with star wideouts. If they don't shore up the secondary, they're going to keep running into the same problem when they face high-powered passing attacks that the top competition in the NFL has to offer. Seattle Seahawks, OG. They finished in the bottom 10 in both pass blocking and run blocking, and their interior line play was particularly bad. The Seahawks have to add a high-level guard who can stabilize the unit. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, WR. Tampa Bay has had a luxury of riches at wide receiver in recent years, but it's always better to reload before you really feel the pain. And with Mike Evans aging, they should try to tap into this wide receiver talent-rich draft class. Tennessee Titans, QB. Sad to say it, but with the Will Levis experiment appearing to be over in the Music City, Tennessee's defense was actually decent last year, and they have a couple of nice playmakers on offense. So they should look to the draft to find a quarterback for the future that they can actually build around. Washington Commanders, edge. As we saw time and time again in 2024, the Commanders' defense was, and projects to be, their Achilles heel. Granted, they were able to patch it together slightly throughout the year, but it is time to finally rebuild it from the ground up. But hey, what do you think your favorite NFL team's biggest need is heading into the draft? What do you think we got right here? What do you think we got wrong? Was there anything that we may have missed? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, then clicking the like button helps us out a ton, and you know, we really appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, then subscribing is a great idea, because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.